Thank you for all attending this news conference today. At 11:44 a.m. on Friday, December the 15th, 2017, we responded to a 911 call to 50 Old Colony Road. Officers attended the address and located Barry Sherman and Honey Sherman, deceased. Post-mortem examinations were conducted at the province's coroner's office forensic pathology unit by a forensic pathologist. The cause of death for both Shermans was ligature neck compression. The manner was undetermined, with the only presented options being double suicide, homicide-suicide, or double homicide.
All right, folks, get ready, because today we're diving into one of Canada's most high-profile unsolved mysteries. This is the case of Barry and Honey Sherman. Now, on the surface, Barry and Honey had it all: success, influence, and enough wealth to live life exactly how they wanted. But in December 2017, everything changed, because that's when they were found dead in their own home. And let me tell you, the circumstances, they're about as strange and chilling as you can imagine. So, who were Barry and Honey Sherman? And how did they end up in one of the most talked about unsolved cases in Canada's recent history? Let's start with Barry Sherman. Barry was one of those classic rags to riches stories. Born in 1942 in Toronto, Barry faced a lot of hardship early on. His father died when he was just 10, leaving the family struggling. But Barry, he was wicked smart, got himself into the University of Toronto, and later went on to study at MIT. Fast forward a few years, and he founded a little company called Apotex. Now, Apotex wasn't just any pharmaceutical company. Barry built it into a massive empire. By the time of his death, Barry was worth around $3.2 billion. And Barry, well, he didn't exactly care much about making friends. In business, he could be ruthless. He wanted to push cheaper generic drugs onto the market, and he didn't care who he annoyed in the process. Lawsuits? A constant. Enemies? Plenty. And then there was Honey Sherman. Now, Honey was kind of the opposite of Barry. Where he was introverted, quiet, Honey was the social butterfly. She was known for her philanthropy, her charm, and her outgoing personality. She was someone who threw herself into charity work, loved by so many in Toronto. Together, they were kind of the ultimate power couple. December 15th, 2017. The Shermans' real estate agent went over to the mansion to give a tour. The Shermans had been thinking of selling the place. But what that agent found? Well, no one was expecting that. The agent stepped down into the basement pool room and found Barry and Honey's bodies, seated side by side on the floor, with belts looped around their necks and tied to the railing. They weren't tied up, and both were in a sort of half-sitting, half-kneeling position. And yeah, it looked like they'd been there for a while. But there's something more to this story. Because here's the thing, just hours before that agent stumbled upon their bodies. Other people had been inside that very same house. You see, Barry and Honey were last seen alive on the evening of December 13th. Honey was out running errands, and Barry was working as usual. Then, early on December 15th, the cleaning staff entered the mansion like they did every week. They walked through the house, did their routine work, and left. But here's the thing. They didn't see anything unusual. Nothing seemed out of place, no signs of a struggle, no sign of Barry or Honey, nothing that would raise any red flags. And here's why this detail matters. The area where Barry and Honey's bodies were later found was in the indoor pool room in the basement. Now, this room was secluded. The cleaners might not have even gone near it. Still, it's unsettling to think that, while they were there, Barry and Honey could have already been dead, just out of sight. A few hours after the cleaners left, the real estate agent arrived to give a tour. As they walked through the mansion, everything seemed fine, until they reached that basement pool room. That's when they saw it. Barry and Honey seated next to each other, in that chilling position with belts around their necks, tethered to the railing. It looked as though they'd been placed there on purpose. It wasn't what you'd expect in any kind of typical murder scene. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no mess. Whoever did this, they left no trace. And that's how the case began. Right from the start, the police were puzzled. Initially, they thought it might have been a murder-suicide because there were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no note, and nothing missing. But the family? They refused to believe it. They were convinced that this was no murder-suicide. Within days, the Shermans' family hired private investigators to review the evidence. And after an extensive look, they concluded that this wasn't a murder-suicide. It was a double homicide. The private investigators even suggested that whoever did this had to know the house well, because they managed to avoid all the security cameras and somehow left no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing. From there, the investigation grew more intense. Police reviewed hundreds of hours of CCTV footage from nearby houses, ran DNA analyses, and interviewed family, friends, employees, even Barry's business rivals. But there was nothing concrete, no suspects, no arrests, just a lot of theories. So, who would want Barry and Honey dead? And why? Well, Barry had his fair share of enemies in business. Legal battles with big pharmaceutical giants, bitter disputes with competitors. Was it possible someone wanted revenge? But again, there was no solid evidence pointing to this, and the theories didn't stop there. Some people speculated there was something personal going on. Barry and Honey's family life wasn't without its complications. Disputes with extended family members over inheritances, business deals gone sour, but still, nothing concrete. And that brings us to today. Nearly 7 years later, we're still left with more questions than answers. The family offered a reward of $10 million for information, but so far, no one has come forward with anything that's cracked the case. To this day, Barry and Honey's deaths remain a chilling, unsolved mystery. Some people say the truth will come out eventually, that maybe someone knows more than they're letting on. But until that day comes, this case leaves a lot of people wondering, what really happened to Barry and Honey Sherman? All right, guys, that's the story of Barry and Honey Sherman. A tragic mystery, and honestly, one that's not likely to be solved anytime soon, unless there's a major breakthrough. Let me know your theories down below, because I'd love to hear what you think happened here. Stay safe out there, everyone. And until the next one, take care.